newspapers, the broadcaster Pete Price, the journalist and broadcaster Thomas Copeland. Gentlemen, good to see you again. And Thomas, this was a story we were going to cover last hour, but I wanted to give it sufficient time. On the front of the Sunday Times, an ambulance trust covering up errors by paramedics, according to the paper, like a criminal gang. Explain this one.
That's right. So this is a former employee of the North East Ambulance Service has accused the trust of acting like a criminal gang, lying to dead patients' families. The employee was in the coroner's office, so it was their job to produce reports on dead patients. He said that the trust were destroying and concealing evidence about patients' death. And in one case, really upsetting, on the front page of the newspaper, he reports or alleges that the paramedics lied about information in the hanging of a 17-year-old in 2018. They deleted the fact that the victim's heart was still beating when paramedics had first arrived, when they had decided not to carry out CPR. He says victims were deliberately kept in the dark, and this cover-up culture seems to have extended, according to the details on the front page here, to his non-disclosure agreement as well, which came with £41,000 payout. He was required to destroy all of the evidence of egregious cover-up and concealment that he had, required to not banned from going to speak to the police in future. Now, the former Health Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, was on the front page, I think, the Sunday Times, talking about this issue as part of a serialisation of his book, and saying that this cover-up culture appears to emerge from a real determination within the NHS to protect the reputation of the organisation, the public's faith in the organisation. But of course, I mean, there are all too many examples of this kind of cover-up culture. Recently, Shrewsbury and Telford Maternity Hospital was a really big story in the last number of weeks, and there are so many other examples even more recently than that. If you look at polling, it suggests that 1 in 6 people in Britain, 1 in 6 personally know of a cover-up within the NHS. That's according to YouGov. 58% of people don't trust the NHS to be open and honest about its mistakes. And of course, the fact that this emerges from a desire within the health service to maintain public trust is so ironic as well, because it's actually openness and accountability and transparency that will increase people's trust. And if the health service is open and honest about its own limitations, its own mistakes, people will put more faith in it going forward. So, you know, it's fairly clear, I think, now that there needs to be some scrutiny and overhaul of the way that accountability and transparency works within the NHS.
Yeah, it certainly feels like we might finally be nudging towards a point at which we can all sit down and rationally discuss what is going on within the health service. And Pete, though, take us to the front of the Sunday Telegraph. Sad news from Paris yesterday, first of all, and first and foremost in terms of the result. But what went on outside was absolute nonsense.
I think it's one of the scariest things I've seen for a long time. I actually thought they'd made a mistake and gone over to Ukraine. I was shocked when I saw the videos coming through on social media, people pressed against fences with tear gas and pepper spray. I thought of Hillsborough yet again. Look at that picture. Absolutely horrendous. And when you looked at the stadium and you saw all the empty seats, they're talking about forgeries, but there was all those empty seats. There's many fans there with tickets. And I mean, there was children, there was young people, women, everybody there. And that scene there, that reminded me of the tunnel at Hillsborough. That was absolutely frightening. This was a sporting game, a game of football, and I have never seen anything like it. And people won't be able to get back. They won't get home. There's all sorts of problems with that. They're in a terrible state. They've got to go to hospital to find out what's wrong with them, with the tear gas, etc. I mean, look at this. It looks like Ukraine. That looks like Ukraine. This was a football match. And if you notice where Madrid, their side, there was no problems. All the seats were full. You saw the empty spaces on the Liverpool side. So I wonder why it was just that side. It is incredible. I just hope our fans get home safe. We've got the FA and the League Cup to celebrate today. They're coming back. But I don't think it's going to be a celebration. I think it's going to be incredibly sad because of what's happened. And I just hope the Liverpool people and the fans from all over the world that went there to that match, I hope they get home safe and I hope they're in good health. It is very frightening what what I saw, and somebody needs to be taken accountable. And as for the French police, oh my word, I'm sorry, they're a disgrace.
Yeah, the use of tear gas and the use of pepper spray, they are indiscriminate tools in circumstances such as that. And Pete makes a very good point. You know, if there were kids there, they would have been affected as much as anything else. I do want to get a couple of more stories in, though. Thomas, page 2 of the Telegraph. I like stories like this. This is the story of the rail chief who's working from home.
That's right, it's a classic story of double standards in the rail industry. So the taxpayer-funded rail delivery group has been encouraging commuters to get back into the office, get back to their commute on the railways. They ran a campaign called Let's Get Back on Track, telling commuters that if they weren't heading back into the office, they were damaging the economy. Now, an investigation by the Sunday Telegraph has revealed that the rail delivery group is enabling all of its office-based workers to work from home. For 3 days a week, only to have to come into the office 2 days a week. And that includes the chief executive, Jacqueline Starr, who's paid £270,000 and has reduced her commute from North Somerset to central London, which is a 4-hour round trip. She's reduced that down to just 2 days a week. And all the while, leading and complicit in a campaign in order to try to encourage commuters to get back into the office, because otherwise they're destroying the economy. Now, it's easy to get sort of mixed up in the hypocrisy of it all, but actually, I mean, it's clearly rational for somebody who lives as far away as Jacqueline Starr does to commute to the office only a few days a week. If she can maintain the same, the work that she's doing at a productivity level, then that makes a lot of sense. But it also makes a lot of sense for loads of other workers and the same workers that she and her organisation is involved in trying to, campaign people to get back into the office. It makes sense for so many of them as well. So, it's clear there needs to be a balanced approach taken here. The bottom line is that if people can work from home and kind of take this flexible approach and maintain the same standard of work, often actually the evidence shows that there can be an increase in productivity. That's a really big problem here in the UK. Then that's a good thing. There are problems, there are always going to be problems. There are economic problems in terms of our high streets. There are also problems to do with isolation. But actually, I mean, if you look at, obviously you're spending less money on your commutes, coffees and lunches and rail tickets and bus tickets. But all of that money doesn't disappear from the economy. It's saved up and it's spent on leisure activities, more money to spend maybe at a restaurant or at a day out. Ultimately, as well, it means there's more money saved for later in life, for care costs. Maybe you're putting some money, on buying a house. It doesn't disappear altogether. So it's clear we need to take a balanced approach to this.
Thomas, sorry, Pete, let's try and squeeze one final one in. Your last story, in fact, let's try and end on a positive note. On the front of the Sunday People, William and Harry are getting on again, apparently. Are they? Really?
It's great. I hope they are getting on. I'd love to know where they get these stories from. Apparently they're FaceTiming each other. I hope that Harry's not keeping all the FaceTimes, because I know he's doing a documentary. I wouldn't trust anybody these days with social media. I'd be very careful about it. But they need to get together. William and Harry went through so much. They lost their mother. I'll never ever forget their two children.
I've literally got to stop because I have 5 seconds before we go off air. So I'll say goodbye to both of you and tell our viewers we'll be back after this.